We can't be mindful if we are functioning in autopilot. It impacts our work, it impacts our relationships, it impacts ourselves. And so it's very important, especially with things changing, I'm going to pay attention to the bigger picture. And a big part of that is not anti-AI and anti-change. It's what are you doing? How are you showing up in your spaces? What are you paying attention to? What are you doing with your time? Because there are so many things that are designed to take your attention away.
Welcome back to another episode of The Leader Within. Today, I'm excited to introduce ChaVon Clarke-Joell, also known as CJ. She's a founder and principal consultant of CKC Cares Ventures Ltd. Given her experience partnering with organizations to integrate the human element into AI-driven innovation, promoting digital well-being, and developing transformative strategies that foster resilience and sustainable growth in the face of disruption, I'm excited to have her share her insights with you. Well, welcome, CJ. Can you please share with us a story that has influenced how you lead yourself and others?
Absolutely. Thank you, Angela, for having me here today. And so, I immediately, Angela, think of when I was young. So I have a degree in psychology, and it makes sense because when I was very young, I would watch people, not in a creepy way, but just like learning how people ride or how people walk or how people do things. And even in high school, maybe a way that someone writes that I think is really interesting and I might practice it. The thing is, authenticity is what always shines through. And for me, I learned that it's so important for me to just show up as myself. And I encourage people to do the same. I think ethical leadership is about being honest and being vulnerable sometimes because we're human, right? I say to my students, if you cut me, if it cut you, no matter where you're from, what gender you are, what shade of skin, it's red. Give me purple blood any day. Okay, Angela, I love purple. But yeah, I think when we are authentic in ourselves and our leadership, then magic happens. We can create safe spaces for other people to learn, to grow, to develop. And so I try to plant seeds of positivity and inspire people, no matter where they are or what they need, but just to be a positive light wherever I can.
I can definitely feel that positive light, and you touched on something there where I wanted to double click into, and it's that element of authenticity. I think it takes a lot of courage and the right environment to allow you to feel psychologically safe and even confident enough to do that. So when folks aren't in that environment early in their career and they're trying to figure out, who is me? How do I
Mhm.
do me? What is some piece of advice that you would offer based on your journey?
Firstly, you are right where you need to be. Being yourself and learning to be authentic, that is a journey. And everybody is at a different place. Some people, when they're young, they know. I have a sister, she just graduated with her master's degree in education. She knew that she wanted to be a teacher from childhood. I remember buying her when she was very young, teaching tools and toys. And now she's a teacher. And so some people, they know very, very early who they are and what they want to do. And sometimes they think they know, but life changes. I believe we live many lives in our one life. And so who are when you're a young professional may look very different. Well, it will look very different to who you are at other spaces or stages in your professional development. Leadership is part of that. Some people are naturally naturally outward leaders. And when I say outward, you've got people who are in your face leaders, and you've got people who may be quieter leaders, but you can still see it. And then you've got people who are silent leaders altogether. And so it's not so much looking at what other people are doing or how learning by looking at how people lead, but not trying to imitate pretty much what I learned in my younger years, right? Not trying to be who they are, but find your leadership within you. Find the voice within you. And we've got some exciting AMP leadership certificate, something that leans on that. It helps people in a safe space to reflect. We can't tell you how to be a leader. That's never what I would try to do, but to set the stage, because what does ethical and responsible leadership actually look like in practice? That starts with us being more aligned with who we are naturally.
Beautifully painted because, like you said, leadership is going to look so different for each individual depending on the chapter that you're in and, of course, your environment. And looking back to your journey, what's one thing you wish you would have been taught about leadership earlier on based on what has shaped who you are and your approach today?
I believe that you can, and I may not be 100% right with this, but my thought is that some people are self-preserving, and in a situation, they will protect themselves. If they have a dollar, they only have a dollar, right? That's it. They can't help you. And then there are others who are self-sacrificing. And so they can't even imagine having a dollar and not giving you 50 cents. I am and I'm not saying it's right or wrong or one is better. This isn't a place of judgment, right? This is just acknowledging and being honest about our natural flow. Right? And so I think balance is important, understanding who you are so that you can find that balance. I'm a natural self-sacrificing person. And in my career and in my leadership journey, I've had many hits because of it, where I've trusted people or I've been too open or too giving. And I've been told by people who are self-preserving, oh, don't do that and don't. And I found it so hard to be them. I am who I am. What I've learned, though, is that people often, we chase happiness and success without thinking about what we're willing to sacrifice. And so I've learned that balance is key to sustainability, energy sustainability, self-sustainability, not self-preservation or self-sacrifice, being able to sustain yourself wherever you are and however you are made, just accepting it. So I'm not suddenly going to be self-preserving. I don't even know the formula, but I am a wiser self-sacrificing person, if that makes sense. And so definitely, I wish someone would have taught me yin and yang, or that everything has to come back to balance. And so if you've got a lot of this, then what else are you sacrificing? And that is a hard and vulnerable, again, lesson to learn as a leader.
I'm going to double click into that concept of self-sacrificing versus self-preserving, because you do see some folks within the corporate setting or potentially even in an entrepreneurial academic setting where they ultimately fuck people over because of that piece and thinking that it allows them to get significantly further ahead faster, which in some cases is true. It allows them to do that, but you burn so many bridges along the way that depending on the environment that you're in, there's no turning back from that. And surprisingly, some environments even reward that type of behavior. So for folks who are similar to you and I, we're just like, if it's meant to be, I'm not gonna go fuck someone over just to kind of achieve whatever it is I want, and whatever will come to me at the pace in which I can control things. Exactly. So when you take a look in those environments where sometimes that brings that trait out of people, and then now they have to go into a new environment where that is no longer required. How do you begin to ebb and flow, understanding that this is actually possible? Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, I can't believe you said, well, I mean, I can't believe you said ebb and flow. We, at CKC Cares, we've got an actual tool called the ebb and flow pack, and it talks about energy, right? It's so important that when we think about, again, leading today in this world where we have very little answers, okay? We're all trying to get through it. And I've said in certain circles, especially with technologists, that we need to be more honest about whether we are nervous with what's happening or not, because many are, but we just want to be more at the front of understanding and helping and supporting others. But coming back to your point, I mean, I think it goes both ways. You've got lots of people who, we talk about burning bridges when we don't show up in a positive way, but some people could burn bridges because they are honest and authentic and genuine, and the person who receives it is not ready for it. So yes, lots of self-accountability and ownership and shadow work, Angela. I don't know if that's a term that everyone connects with, but what I say to my students, walk around and there's something that follows you. It's your shadow, and you can't tell it to stay home, like Fido the dog or your younger sibling. It stays with you. And look at it. It is black. It's dark, where it doesn't change. It has no colors, because everyone, just like we talked about yin yang, ebb and flow, everyone has light and darkness. And you cannot see the light in full light. You need darkness. So you need to be okay with who you are, your strengths or limitations. And so one is understanding and doing that work, number, what do people think? Or what is the narrative, so to speak, right? And then I put it in categories. How much of that? I'm okay. That's who I am. I will change for no one. Okay, this is who I am. Like me, I am honest. I am honest. I honestly cannot think of any situation where not being honest is better. I really can't. And that's what I meant. Like people who sacrifice, they can't see the other side. But what I have is grace and space for what I don't understand or what I don't agree with or believe. That's how you see it, Angela? Okay. So what's important, I think, for anyone, not just young professionals, it can happen to anyone, right? And because we're all on our own separate journey. And so it is a matter of being able to continue to show up as yourself, to have empathy as well for other people. And that's grace and space. I mean, given the grace and the space, you're having empathy that, oh, you don't get it. I understand. But now you know. So I'll give everyone one chance, at least if that makes sense. And so in any environment, if someone crosses the line or someone puts you in a situation where you're uncomfortable, I do believe that they may genuinely not know. They may see the world completely differently. We open our phones, when we engage online on social media, every one of us are having a different experience. No one's having it identical. And so what we think is common sense or ethical, it's a spectrum, right? Somebody may say, oh yeah, that's ethical. And someone else might say, why would you even think to do that? And so we have to have that space to talk, to understand each other. Now, if you understand me and we're still having that situation, then it's perhaps more about character and misalignment when it comes to character. And so in that situation, I think it's always important to give that new opportunity 100%, 150, I say, of yourself, right? Go and show up and start like it's the first day, because it is. And if they show you things that are similar, pay attention, be mindful, and understand how you will navigate the situation. But also remember that there are times when we are at fault. We're at fault. It's a lesson. In every situation, even if you feel you've been done wrong, there's a lesson for you. And so the longer it takes for us to recognize the lesson or learn the lesson, the more we're in that situation. And it keeps coming back. And so again, understanding the universe, I think, is a very interesting space as we continue to grow. And I think it has its place in leadership as well, understanding at a micro and a macro level.
I appreciate that perspective that you just shared, and I want to dive more into deeper now. Like, how do you effectively lead the leader within, whether it's a practice, a routine, or whatever it may be?
And, we've been talking about it. It's a theme, You know what? As we talk in general, Angela, I think, we follow a certain theme. I remember when we talked before. It's natural flow, I have to say. And so I'll tell you a joke. I wake up at a time, they call it the zone of genius, as a matter of fact, but I wake up every day consistently, 4 to 6 a.m. I could go to bed at 5 a.m. and bing, I'm up. Maybe 5, not 4, but I'm still within that time. And so there was a time when I would literally, Angela, talk about being vulnerable. I would cry because I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm seeing the clock and I can't sleep. And no, I'm not going through the change of life, but I'm going through this period of time where I think that my clock has just changed. I was going to say biological clock, but my clock has just changed. My productivity clock has changed. And so I've learned to just work with my natural flow. If I wake up naturally at that time, well, get up. Get up. Now, no, I'm not one to take a walk at 4 a.m., but I certainly will take that quiet time to work. And that becomes a real secret gem, right? Because when everyone's snoozing, I'm studying, I'm writing, I'm reading, I'm learning. And that is a time that, I believe it's meant for me to do those things. Because when the world switches on, then I have to be so many different things for so many different people, like we all do, right? Leading is hard nowadays. And so I think it's important that we find our natural rhythm, that we connect with our true rhythm as a leader. And CKC Cares, we have sound drumming. It's not you playing the drum, it's a listening tour. And it goes with your chakras, for those of you listening who may know about chakras. And so there are certain sounds that stimulate us, being more grounded and understanding more of who we are. And then there are some that stimulate clarity and understanding more about the world, and even throat chakra, how we speak, how we articulate ourselves and our thoughts. And so as leaders, I believe that it's important to tap into both our internal and our external, because those things help us, again, to be able to lead more ethically, to be more mindful, to be more empathetic, and to create those safe spaces that allow people to thrive.
I never heard any other guests share about just aligning the chakras and just like listening to those drum beats and how that can help with that. And what gets in the way of effectively leading the leader within?
I mean, there are so many things that can get in the way, from digital disruption to people. Right? To people, to life. And I think I'll talk more to life because, well, that's kind of the theme we're on, right? But also, I think anybody would talk about the normal distractions, children and, things that happen, right? But more importantly is the idea that we have to be okay just getting through disruption and change. And, I say that disruption happens in good and bad. We put that negative connotation on disruption. When a woman is pregnant, that is total disruption to her body, right? Total disruption to the whole family, to be quite fair. But it's a good disruption. The students I teach on the MSc management program, many of them come from abroad, India, Pakistan, and, Bangladesh and Nigeria, Kenya. And so they disrupted their family and their lives to come and study. But what a beautiful opportunity they have. And so I teach leading in digital change. And so change is constant. Disruption typically comes with it. It's really how we look at it. And so I think in this space, it's very much how we train our minds. Many of us, we wake up and we're in autopilot, go to work, pick up kids, cook, but we don't even think about it, right? If something goes wrong, that's when we pay attention. But we need to recognize the good things as well. And we can't be mindful if we are functioning in autopilot. It impacts our work. It impacts our relationships. It impacts ourselves. And so it's very important, especially with technology changing, things changing. I mean, COVID was our slap in the face, right? Like, ping, you're not in control. Remember? And so that is what we're going through with digital transformation. And I say that's human transformation. We need to redefine what it means to be human, to be excellent as a human, valuable. What does it mean now? Especially as we're seeing so many changes in this space. And so, I think it's really important that we are mindful of the way we show up and how we support the systems and the people, no matter what we're going through. Ethical leadership means you're not taking that out on other people. So you didn't like what your husband said, so that doesn't trickle into the workplace. You leave that drama where it belongs, and you deal with that accordingly. When you're at work, it's important that we show up in a way that we can work with others. But you need to be authentic. So you may be thinking, well, how could you be authentic? You just had an argument, right? Well, yes, you take that time that you need. You call in and say, I'm going to be a little late. Or you show up on time, but you get in the bathroom. And lock the door and breathe. And think to yourself that I have to go back. I have to get started. But I will deal with XYZ when I finish, or I will deal with this matter. It gives us time for clarity, time to really think about how we're going to deal with that situation as well.
What stood out to me as you were talking about that is not defaulting to autopilot mode, because with the way that technology is rapidly evolving, there's an element of really understanding what's going on and not just taking things as it is.
Mm.
Because where that kind of can become really intimidating, even I was listening to a podcast, I think it was Diary of a CEO, what the Godfather of AI. And he was talking about, it's like, if we don't pay attention and truly take the time to wrap our minds around what's going on, very much so, like technology could, when they say we don't need you as humans anymore, because we haven't even began to unlock the full capacity of our brains.
Yeah.
So when it comes to your zone of genius, specifically when it comes to leadership effectiveness and then ethical leadership. Can
Mm.
you share a little bit about just a trend or a gap that you're noticing?
And I mean, again, like a theme, one thing that is very clear are, concerns of what ethical leadership is. What does it mean? We talk about it, but it's so important that the clarity around what does that mean in the organization, aligning that with culture, aligning it with the values of the entity. But, we talk about this, not being aware, one, and I watched that, my goodness. I couldn't think of the name of the podcast, but I watched that same one with the Godfather, and it was really really good. I mean, the reality is we're stuck on going to happen in the short term, but we really need to pay attention to the bigger picture. And a big part of that is not anti-AI and anti-change. It's what are you doing? How are you showing up in your spaces? What are you paying attention to? You can play games, right? We can play games on our phone, but what games are you playing? Are they strategy building games? Do they help you because your memory's going? What are you doing with your time? And I'm not saying that to be, a Debbie Downer and no, I mean, this is a time when you have to pay attention because there are so many things that are designed to take your attention away, designed to do that. And you cannot blame them. We are, if you're a child, that's different. But as an adult, we choose what we do, right? And the thing is, so many people, we've been functioning in this space for so long. I was a single parent for a little while. And so, yeah, I had to take the job I needed. I couldn't wait until I got my dream job. So you do what you need to do. But how many people are still in the job that they hated? And they believe that somehow the industry owes them or the job owes them. So they may not be showing up, giving their best and mediocre. And now they're very concerned about what's going to happen with their job. So is the concern AI, or is it about you not being honest about what you really want to do? And is this an opportunity for you to pivot? We can turn the narrative in a heartbeat. It doesn't have to be, where you're staying doing the same thing unless that's what you want to do. There are so many brilliant people, even yourself, like with your podcast. I mean, I don't know if you did this for many, many years, but so many people are stepping up there, doing what they want to do. I've talked to so many women who have left their jobs and took a leap of faith. I mean, what do you have to lose? Some of them might say. And I'm not saying that in a, Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. Like I said, I was a single parent. If you need to do something, do what you need to do. But why are you there for 20 years? If your children are now graduated, you've never wanted to do it. Maybe you wanted to do something that requires education and you may feel like it's too late for you to do it. There are so many stories of people who have gone back to school. Or maybe you don't need to go back to school. I believe we should look at careers in clusters, not as, not everybody's going to be a doctor, Angela. Maybe honestly, you don't have the capability to do that, but you still love healthcare. We need people who love healthcare to work in healthcare. We don't need people who need a job and are ill-treating elderly to be in healthcare. And that's what I mean by now we need to be more serious about what we want to do, how we show up, and how we're functioning. I did a talk in London for Disrupt HR, and I talked about a report card, the autopilot report card. So 2 people could get a C, and they have worked the same amount, but it was an average output. One person worked hard and the other person just coasted. They could have gotten an A, but they got a C. One person, they got a C because they cared about humanity, and maybe they had to pause putting that tool out because they needed to do an ethical review or an assessment. Or maybe they didn't feel that it was safe enough to issue it to, or introduce it, to children or to a vulnerable population. But the other one put it out. So one gets an A for humanity and one gets an F. So how are we truly showing up as ethical people, not just leaders?
I know you mentioned the how a few times. And when it comes to organizations, as they begin to understand, okay, like where can we automate a specific type of work within an organization, or maybe looking to reskill, what are some frameworks or elements to ethical leadership that you would say, like, hey, as you go through this exercise, strongly recommend that you keep blank at the
Mm.
forefront of your mind based on how it's going to really impact people's lives.
Defining ethical leadership. And so if I had to, I would come back to that because I think it's so important nowadays. It's like telling someone that they have to do something, but not giving them a blueprint or helping them to understand how you see it, right? What's your version of success versus my version of success? And so again, I think really considering what CKC Cares calls EMP leadership, and it's spelled EAMP, but it's like amplified leadership. That's what we need going into the future. Amplified leadership, empathy for the E, authenticity and adaptability for A, mindfulness, presence, and purpose. And so it's very important that we consider those things. I mean, Angelo, would you argue with those things you think kind of demonstrate what an ethical person would consider and do as a leader? And so I think it's important that we think about those things and also creating those spaces as a leader, safe spaces, the TLC group. And it wasn't mentioned at the beginning, but I am co-owner of the TLC group as well as So a lot of our conversation around disrupt is because I work in disruption, so to speak, and I teach leading in digital change or disruption. And so we have a framework called the SSA, Sense, Shape, Adapt. In this space of VUCA, volatile, unknown, complex, and ambiguous, VUCA, we're in a space where we don't know. And so we need to be humble as leaders in a way that just because we're at the front, just because we make the decision, doesn't mean that we have all the answers. We shouldn't even want to be viewed in that same way nowadays. We should want to have more informed decision making, and that means the right data in front of you, fair data, as well as diversity. So having diversity of thought, not just diversity of, nationality or gender or race, but diversity of thought. Group thinking does not work in the now and into the future.
Thank you so much for sharing both of those tools with us. And as we slowly wrap up our conversation, what do you think it takes to unleash the potential of individuals and organizations?
I'm tapping more into our creativity. See, of course, there are different types of creativity, right? You might be an excellent cook, and that's still a type of art, right? Culinary arts, right? And there are people who may think at a very high strategic level, and that is also a demonstration of creativity. So being creative in a way of finding a way to relate to the people that you serve and the people that work with you. I think that's really important at all levels of growth and leadership, that we give that understanding and again, that space for people to learn. Yes, you may have changed. We can change in a month, we could change in a year, but do you remember who you were last year? Were you just as perfect as you are today? And so though we are growing, we have to continue to plant seeds and encourage people. And when I say behind us, not literally behind us, walking with us, but needing certain skills or certain guidance or certain advice. And so we've come into a time when most people, they can be very cold. They won't help you. They won't tell you. And, there's people even colder that may say, I'm just going to sit back and watch you fail. And they'll say that out loud. And like you said, they will be celebrated on social media and in other circles. And so being ethical as a leader and a person is hard to do. It means that you're vulnerable, but ultimately we must do unto others as we would want them to do unto us. It's the art of reciprocity that we need to consider. So will we have this come back? I don't want to say karma, but I said it. Would this come back to us if we don't hold the door open for that senior walking in, right? So I'm making that into a lighter thing, but it's not, because that senior could have needed you, that younger person or that stronger person, to hold their door. So scaffolding is my last point there, Angela. We need to build people. People need to build people. One of the last frameworks I'll mention through CKC Cares is human scaffolding. And so that is comprised of a number of frameworks. From bag and bleed, I've talked about mapping your strengths and your limitations. So doing that within an organization. And then also RAD, reflect, answer, analyze, and discuss with diversity. So creating these safe spaces. So I like to say CKC Cares, we bring safe spaces with us. And so whether it's through fun and games or it's through FedMob, which is our product line on our shop, you can buy mugs and you can buy all sorts of things that help you to earn that moment of clarity. Again, before you go into that difficult conversation, pause. Take a sip and go in when you're ready.
Visual cues are so essential, especially when you have the amygdala hijack going on. So, last question to you is, what is one thing that is top of mind for you that we can either celebrate with you on or help you with?
To be fair, you could do a little bit of both. I've talked a lot about how CKC Cares Ventures Limited, how we are very keen to create these spaces and human-centered approaches and solutions to digital transformation. If you are the type that believes in something bigger than yourself, then FedMob would be something that you would love. And yes, it's quirky and it's weird. FED, focus, empower, define. It's not the feds. And mob, mindfulness on balance. And so here we're playing with words, and that is a big part of CKC Cares. Play and care as a strategy. And I believe that when we lean in on those things, it helps us to remember how human we all are in this journey. And so whether it's policies through ethical AI elevations, we do, write policies. There are policies around shadow AI, around ethical AI data training, and things of that sort that may not be the average policies that you may come across. And so, we're creating a safe space in our shop where you can go and you can read articles and lots of thought leadership. So we want people to engage with us as well as you see us in our social spaces and if you come to join us or visit us in our shop. And so thank you so much for your time. And I just wanted to mention is the other side. So we say CKC Cares is like the softer side, and that's the human side when I say softer of AI and digital transformation. TLC Group, of course, as I've mentioned, is about data protection, it's about AI, it's about cybersecurity, but bigger than that, it's about being able to strategize as a leader and as an organization in the time of unknown. So if you can celebrate and join us, if you think any of these things are useful to you in your journey, we look forward to hearing from you.
So many golden nuggets in that one answer, and I've learned so many terms today. I've never heard of a lot of those different models, but the core characteristics that are within, I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense when it comes to how it can help with leadership effectiveness. CJ, thank you so much for sharing your insights and stories today. And to everyone else that's tuned into another episode, thank you for your time and attention. It means more to me than you'll know, and I can't wait to stay in touch with you on my next episode. Till then, stay safe.